Nutrition is without question one of the most impactful things that we have to some degree within our control when it comes to improving our overall health, but also improving our fertility. I spend a great deal of time as a registered dietitian and as a yoga teacher who specializes in fertility and women's health, helping people make nutrition changes so that they can improve their chances of conceiving, reduce their risk of pregnancy and postpartum related complications, improve their overall health and well-being, and shorten their time to conception, while increasing the likelihood that they will conceive when they are trying to conceive. That's what I do for a living, and it's also the sort of information that I tend to share here on the channel. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do is actually take you behind the scenes and into one of my sessions so that hopefully you could get some ideas and insight on how you can do all of the things that I help my one-on-one clients do for yourself by working perhaps with me or by working with your providers. Unfortunately, that would be legally and ethically wrong to do, right? I can't share that personal information, my client's personal information with you. So instead, what I've decided to do in this series, and this is the second part in that series, is coach myself and show you some of the things that I'm doing to prepare myself for pregnancy as a 39-year-old who will likely not start trying to conceive until she's in her 40s. So in this week's video, which is, like I said, part 2 of this multi-part series, I am focused on the nutrition assessment piece of the work that I do with my clients. So in last week's video, we did the initial assessment. That's where I talked about my cycle parameters, where I talked about the medical appointments and dental appointments that I either needed to schedule or that I'm doing quite well on and actually staying on top of. So proud of myself there. I hinted at the fact that there were some supplements that I definitely needed to explore for myself. And so we're going to talk about that in this video because this is a nutrition video. And we also talked about mindset. So I shared a bit about how some not so kind comments have come into the channel. Very few. Y'all are amazing for the most part. Like seriously, I'm really fortunate because the internet is not always the kindest place to be, but y'all are incredibly kind people. We talked a little bit about how a couple of those comments actually touched a nerve, which is, I think, a good thing because it let me know that there was something that I needed to take a closer look at. And so that's what we talked about in that video. Definitely go back and watch it, especially I think the last part where I share a journaling practice and the journaling practice that I'm going to be doing throughout this series for myself to explore my fear around being judged by other people and wanting this later in life. So definitely go back and look at that, especially if you're someone who likes to take a deep dive into your own thoughts and beliefs and emotions about something. I think that you will really enjoy the journal practice that I shared there. But like I said, this video is all about nutrition. So in this video, I am going to go through my nutrition assessment. This is a version of the nutrition assessment that I do with my one-on-one clients. It doesn't include the food journaling that I have them do. That's because I know how I eat. So I didn't need to take pictures of my food and write down everything that I ate. I can just see it. But I did go through the form that I have them complete. It's slightly different because what I did was actually turned it into a PDF so that if you all were interested in doing your own self-assessment that's in line with the things that I ask my one-on-one clients, then you could do that as well. I've linked to that in the description box below. So down below you will find the nutrition self-assessment and guide that I have created so that you can do the same. I made it as inexpensive as possible while still respecting the time that I put in creating it and all the years that it's taken for me to gather all of this information, but I still wanted it to be as accessible as possible. Anyhow, so I'm going to show you my results, the things that I could be doing better with, and I'm also going to show you how I came up with my goals, because it's not enough to just know like, oh, I could do better here. Like sometimes you have to ask yourself, why am I not doing that thing? Is it just not the right time to do whatever that thing is? Do I need to look at it in an alternate way, right? All of that sort of stuff. So I'm going to take you into how my brain works when it comes to formulating goals. And I'm also, of course, going to give you action steps so that even if you don't get the nutrition self-assessment and guide, you can still start to put some of these sorts of ideas to use to improve your nutrition and support your fertility. All right, let's get started. With my one-on-one clients, we do this nutrition assessment all within Practice Better, which is the telehealth platform or the electronic medical record that I use to have our video sessions in, to share any resources with them, to collect their lab information or any documents that I might need for them, and also for them to complete any assessments or forms. But I decided to print out the PDF that is available for purchase. I decided to print that out and actually write out my answers, which felt really good. It kind of reminded me of when, you'd have those teen magazines and you'd be completing the little quizzes in the magazine and you'd actually have to write it out. That's what it felt like. It felt really good to do something that was like tangible and real. I really like paper. That's a whole thing. But anyhow, so that's what I did. And there were some things that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that I could be doing a bit better there. So I'm really happy that I completed this assessment. So here are my results. So when it comes to the amount of vegetables that I'm eating, I could be eating a larger amount of vegetables in each of my meals. I'm eating vegetables pretty much at every single meal, so that's right in line with what I like to see for my clients. But the ratio of my plate or the ratio or percentage of my meal that those vegetables make up is a little bit smaller than what I'd like to see. Next, I could increase the amount of fruit that I'm eating each day. Currently, I'm eating fruit maybe once a day. I'd like to see myself eating fruit at least twice a day. Next, I'm really not eating whole grains every day. And the recommendation is to make about half of the grains that you eat whole grains. I mostly prefer refined grains. Like I really like white bread. I really like white rice. I don't really love brown rice. So there's not a lot of whole grains that I prefer to their refined counterparts. So that's something that I'm probably gonna have to get a little creative when it comes to improving. Next, eating distracted. I like to play Wordle in the morning, okay? And Wordle and breakfast just go together in my head. So that one might not change. Lunch and dinner. Dinner is sometimes distracted, but usually not so much because I tend to have it with my husband. Lunch, it depends. I'm usually pretty good at getting away from my desk to eat lunch. Sometimes not so great. So that might be an area where we can make some improvement. When it comes to the amount of water that I'm drinking, I'm really not drinking water as much as I'd like to, or what I'd like to see for myself. In part, okay, here's the truth. Sometimes I just don't feel like getting up to get water. Like that's really, I will be thirsty and I'll be like, I'm not getting up. So that feels like it'll be a really simple fix. We'll see. And then when it comes to supplements, I often will recommend that people start with a prenatal, possibly CoQ10, possibly an omega-3. Anything beyond that, I think that it should be tailored to that person's lab. So for me, I'm not taking a prenatal, I'm not taking CoQ10, and I'm not taking an omega-3. So those are all the things that I could do a bit better with. That's a lot of different things. And I am not a big fan of taking on a lot of changes at once. I say you do 1 to maybe 3 different things at once. Master those things. Once those things are relatively consistent, again, we're human, things can be flexible, we can be imperfect about all of these things. That's when you add on something new. So now that you know where I stand, where I can improve, I'm going to share with you how I would look at each of these things to come up with goals that will actually help me improve those things and not just kind of like browbeat myself and say I should be doing better. Okay, let's get into it. So the first one, as I said, I'm eating vegetables at most of my meals. We're doing great there. But I'm not eating as many vegetables, or like the amount of vegetables I'd like to see at each of those meals. When I thought about why it was I wasn't doing it, in part, it's just because like I wasn't portioning out that amount of vegetables. And so what I thought, that's actually just the main thing. So what I thought might be a way for me to eat more vegetables at each of my meals is to actually incorporate a bit more vegetables into each of the components of my meal, rather than just trying to like put more vegetables on the plate. So let's say me and my husband were having like chicken, potatoes, when I say vegetables, I mean non-starchy vegetables. Yeah. So let's say we were having a meal of chicken, potatoes, and like cabbage or something like that. So one of the things that I could do is I could just put more cabbage on the plate, right? Like that's an option. But I also maybe could add peppers and onions to the potatoes. Come on now. I could do the chicken also with like onions and peppers, right? Or I could put mushrooms. I like this idea. I could add mushrooms to the chicken, right? So the additional vegetables doesn't have to just mean have more of this one vegetable that I'm thinking of as like my main side dish. It can be incorporating vegetables into the protein-rich part of my meal, into the carb-rich part of my meal. That way there's just more vegetables all over the plate. So that's probably what I'll do, is while I'm preparing like my protein-rich component and my carb-rich component, when I'm having a meal where everything is separated out like that, then I'll think, hey, is there a way I can add vegetables to the protein-rich component and to the carb-rich component? And I think that will help me get closer to what I'm looking for. Another option, because I really like fermented vegetables, is like I can have a smaller little portion of fermented vegetables on the side. And that way I don't have to prepare anything extra. And I'm also getting in those wonderful, probiotics and those healthy bacteria. Yes, that's what I was looking for, the healthy bacteria. So I'll play with that and we'll see how that goes. I think that should work though. Okay, and so then the next area where I could improve is when it comes to my fruit. So I'm currently eating usually about 1 serving of fruit a day, or 1 portion of fruit, whatever you want to call it. I'm having fruit once a day. I would like to see myself having fruit more often. And when I thought about why I wasn't eating more fruit, I realized it's because I'm bored. Like I'm so bored with oranges, apples, and bananas. And that's typically what we get. Like when we go grocery shopping, we just kind of get those so we have them on hand. But like, I don't want to eat them. I'm bored. Like, I need cantaloupe. I need honeydew. I need berries. Like I need mangoes. I need pineapples. I need my fruit to be more fun. I can't wait for watermelon to be in season. So what I'm going to do is not just buy what I always buy, but like think about what I really want when it comes to fruit. I'm also thinking I can go to, there's a website, I can't recall the name, but I will make sure to put an image of it somewhere here, maybe right in front of me. It might be up here now. And the link as well. And that website has like seasonal vegetables and seasonal fruit. So you know what's available in your area according to the season. And I think if I look at something like that, it'll remind me that there's more out there besides apples, oranges, and bananas, which I'm kind of bored with. And so in that way, I'll have a variety of fruit that I'm choosing from that's constantly changing to keep things interesting and exciting for myself. The other thing that I'm thinking I'm going to do is have more dried fruit. I love dried fruit. But you know what else I love? Gummy bears. Jelly beans, and I eat a lot of gummy bears and jelly beans, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for those things. But I do think sometimes I could opt for like a handful of dried fruit instead of the gummy bears and jelly beans. Just sometimes, not all the time. So I think dried fruit could be something that I could make sure that I'm having available for myself so that I can choose between candy or that. Yeah, or maybe I'll just have both. Maybe I'll mix them together. Who knows? Who knows? I'm thinking they could also be really, really easy to incorporate into my like late afternoon snack. So I could do like a handful of nuts with a handful of dried fruit, and then that can be my snack between lunch and dinner, because I usually have a snack between lunch and dinner, and so that could be my go-to. So we also established that I'm not eating enough whole grains, at least not according to the recommendations that come from the 3 fertility supporting eating patterns that I tend to use with my clients. So I'm not in line with those recommendations. Again, I tend to just prefer a lot of the refined grains, but there are some whole grains that I really, really enjoy. So I really like popcorn. I really like corn tortillas. There are also some whole grains that come from different cultures that I haven't really explored. So I think for me, it's more so pop the popcorn and have it as my, one of my other go-to snacks. Choose corn tortillas when possible. I actually prefer corn tortillas to flour tortillas, so maybe it's also looking for ways to use corn tortillas more since I really enjoy them. And maybe I give myself a challenge of just like trying one new type of whole grain, because I really enjoy learning about other cultures through their cuisine. So that could be something, right? Like maybe I can, and this might be something that's a little heavier lift. So this might not be the thing I prioritize. This may be down the road, but maybe I choose like one new culture cuisine to explore a month, and I explore the whole grains of that culture. Maybe, we'll see. That probably won't happen this summer because I don't really like cooking in the summer, but it's an idea. The next thing was eating distracted. So for me, the morning distraction probably won't change, and I'm okay with that. Again, don't have to be perfect. The dinner, we were already in a decent place. Lunch was the one where it's like kind of touch and go. Sometimes I'm scrolling on my phone, looking at social media, which may make me anxious instead. Sometimes occasionally I do work and eat at the same time, but that doesn't happen too often. So one of the things that I'm thinking is I could maybe do what I recommend my clients do, which is take like a breath, especially if someone gets very focused on the nutrient content and the calories and all that. And it's like food is just about like perfection or perfectionism and like the nutrients, and they kind of forget the sensory aspects of it. I'll often have people instead like breathe. Take notice of what they see, the colors, the shapes. Take notice of what they feel, the textures, the temperature. Take notice of what they smell. What are the aromas? What's standing out? What is enticing about this meal? Like really get into the sensory aspect of the meal, and the meal maybe can turn into the entertainment. So maybe that is something that I can give a try. That's something that I could do quite easily. And we'll see if it helps me to not feel like I need to be distracted during meals quite as much. But maybe that's one of the things that I'm just like, that's okay. I accept that about myself. Then we had the water. As I said, sometimes I just don't feel like getting up to get water. So I think the easiest thing for me, because I work from home, is when I have my morning cup of tea, I can just fill up a mason jar of water and go put it on my desk. And it's there for me throughout the day. I do tend to drink a beverage with each of my meals, so that's giving me some water, but the in-between, especially if I'm at my desk and don't feel like getting up to get water, that's where we're falling a little bit short. So a large mason jar, thing is like 32 ounces. That's a decent amount of water. That's a really easy one. That one I can absolutely do. And then finally, we have our supplements. So I am taking a women's multi that does contain folate. I would recommend to myself to switch to a prenatal. One of the things that's really difficult for prenatals, at least for me, when it comes to prenatals, for me is that like I really struggle with swallowing pills, and prenatals are huge. So often they're huge and they don't always smell great. So I tend to go with a gummy. If I go with a gummy, it's SmartyPants, or I go with, there's a bar that I really like by Tend. So that is what I would recommend to myself. That is what I am recommending to myself. Go with what you can take. Sometimes I think people are so stuck on the idea that they have to choose like the best. But if the best is just something like you're not going to take, go with what you can take, right? Also, I think both of these are great. So like they're great options either way. Even if I could consistently swallow pills without issue, I still might choose them because like they're well formulated and they taste good, and we like that. As you know, I do like gummies. I already established that earlier. So that's what I would choose. And when I say that, what comes to mind is how important it is that you match what you do with what works for you. Like, it doesn't matter if it's the bestest thing out there. If it just doesn't work for you and who you are, like, what really matters is that you're doing the best for you. I said this recently to someone where it was like, stop thinking about, is it good for your fertility? Think, is this good for me? Because if it's good for you, it's good for your fertility. I think too often it's like people search online, they get all this information about what's good for fertility, but they kind of lose the importance of themselves in the process. Like, is it good for you? That's what matters. Do that. Do what's good for you. Now the CoQ10. Remember how I said I have trouble swallowing pills? So I have not seen like a CoQ10 gummy that I think is all that great and not ridiculously expensive. I did see one, but it was a bit more than I would want to spend a month on top of a prenatal. So for a CoQ10, as much as I think it's great, if it's outside of my budget and I can't swallow it, then it's just not an option for me. And so I have to trust my body to fill in the gaps. I can also look at different foods that are higher in CoQ10. I have an entire video on CoQ10. You can find that in the description box below as well. And so for me, it's doubling down on the foods that are higher in CoQ10 and just accepting that, like, you don't have to take everything that's good. You don't have to take everything that's recommended. Like, you can just take what's available. Before we had CoQ10 pills, people were getting pregnant. Like, it's okay if you can't take every single thing that we think is helpful. And then the third thing that I often recommend is an omega-3. I likely won't take an omega-3, one, because the SmartyPants has DHA in it, the Tend has DHA, so whichever one I go with for those. I don't think the SmartyPants has the recommended amount, like the full recommended amount, but it does have some. The Tend does have the full recommended amount. Additionally, I eat seafood regularly enough that my needs are met there. So again, it's that thing of like, just because it's recommended doesn't mean it's something you need. So it's not something I need, even though it's something I often recommend, but I recommend it based on what's going on in the rest of the person's diet. What else is going on in their budget? What is going on with like how many other pills they may be taking for other reasons, and they can't imagine taking more pills, right? Like, it's too many already. And I'm talking more so in terms of like medications. If they're taking so many supplements that it's overwhelming, then we need to figure out how to take less supplements, because I have seen some people taking supplements that they just didn't need. So they likely weren't being harmed by them, but they also weren't getting the benefits that they thought they were getting from them. In some cases, I have seen people taking so much of certain nutrients that I was worried that we were starting to cause harm. Not we, but that whoever had recommended they take all those supplements was causing them harm. A very common thing that I see is where someone is taking a prenatal that has vitamin D. Then they may have heard or been told that vitamin D is good for fertility. So then they'll take a standalone vitamin D, and then they might have like another supplement. Perhaps it's an omega-3, perhaps it's like a fertility boosting sort of a supplement that also has vitamin D. And they don't realize that they're taking vitamin D in like 3 or 4 different forms and getting over the amount that they actually need. So that's something to be on the lookout for. Your prenatal may have that nutrient that you read was so good for fertility already in it, and you don't need a standalone version of it. You might be getting enough from your prenatal and your diet, and you don't need more of it. Another thing that I've seen is where people are actually taking supplements that are commonly recommended for people of a certain age, but they didn't need it. So a popular one is DHEA. You'll often see people say, like, if you're over 40, take DHEA, but not if your DHEAS levels are already normal. I've never had a client where I needed to recommend that particular supplement to them. So those are some of the things that go beyond just like what's true for me and kind of go into the land of something that I would encourage you to be mindful of. Beyond something like a prenatal, a CoQ10, an omega-3, and if you have PCOS, maybe a inositol. Beyond that, I think if you're taking anything beyond that, it should be based on what your labs say, what's going on in your diet, and what's true for you, not just what's good for fertility, what's good for you. That might be our new thing, right? Like, I don't care if it's good for fertility, is it good for you? So like I said, that's a lot of goals. I'm not doing all that at once. So my priority is going to be increasing my vegetables, increasing my fruit, and drinking more water. That's where I'm focusing my attention. Once those are mastered, then I will add on the others as life allows me to do so. All right, enough about me. Now some action steps for you. I have 3 tips for you, 3 things I would recommend that you take a look at to support your fertility using nutrition. Number 1, make sure that you are eating enough. I cannot tell you how many times I have worked with people who are under eating, and once we get them eating enough, things start to change for them. We start to see more consistent ovulation. We start to see those menstrual cycles lengthening. We start to see longer luteal phases. And in some cases, we finally get that positive pregnancy test. Eating enough is I'm going to say it's the most important thing. It is when it comes to nutrition for fertility. Like, nothing else matters more. Taking the right supplements doesn't matter if you're not eating enough. Removing foods that you probably don't need to actually remove from your diet doesn't matter if you're not eating enough. The most important thing you can do is eat enough. Your body needs to feel safe. It needs to know that it has the energy to take care of you and another life. I've often talked about how food, now this didn't come from me originally, but someone said this. They said that food is a messenger and it's telling your body information about the environment. When they said that, I thought to myself, oh, that explains it. You want to communicate to your body that there's enough food, there's enough energy in this environment to take care of you and another person, to sustain you through pregnancy and sustain you while breastfeeding and rearing another human. And there's enough to feed this other human. Like, you want to communicate a sense of abundance to your body. And one of the ways you do that is by eating enough. If you are using like a tracker or an app or a calculator, or anyone has ever calculated your nutrient needs, your macros, any of that, and it was based on wanting to lose weight, there's a really good chance that that number is below what your body needs to support your health and fertility. There's this really great quote in an article, or this really great line from a research article that sums this up so beautifully. I often find myself reading this to my one-on-one clients when we're talking about the importance of eating enough. So it reads, when energy intake is insufficient to compensate for energy expenditure and future energy needs, reproductive function is suppressed so that functions maintaining basic survival can continue. That's it, right? When you don't eat enough, your body will downregulate something that it does not see essential to your survival. That includes reproduction. Number 2, be intentional about your supplements. I feel like I hung out there enough when I was talking about my own supplement needs and earlier in the video as well. But be really intentional about your supplements. Yes, have your bases covered. Start with a good prenatal. Maybe take a CoQ10 if that's appropriate for you or you're interested in taking it, or another sort of egg quality supporting supplement. I'll make sure to link to the video on CoQ10 as well as some information, or at least a link to Fertility Booster by Fullwell. That's another one that you might want to explore. Yes, make sure that those things are in place. Again, if they're appropriate for your budget and for what you can tolerate and what you want to do. Also, a fish oil quite often is something that I recommend, but if you're eating enough seafood, then that may not be something that you need, right? Beyond that, oh, and if you have PCOS, maybe an inositol. There's some people who can't tolerate an inositol. Some people just don't like it. That's okay. But beyond those, I think that any supplements that you take should be as a result of a conversation that you've had with a well-trained healthcare professional who has assessed you as an individual. And our final tip, tip number 3, focus on what you can add in to support your fertility. So much of the information that I see online is all about what to avoid, what to fear. And the truth is, there's rarely any food groups that anyone needs to eliminate unless they're like allergic to them or there's like a religious or cultural reason to avoid them. A lot of it is just people parroting what they heard someone else say. We could hang out there too all day, but just make your focus what to add in. Think of it as, how can you build yourself up? That's how I think of it, right? Like, how can I boost myself? How can I bolster myself? And I do that by adding in, by pouring into myself, pouring goodness into myself. And so choose maybe 1 to 3 things that you can add in to support your fertility. Keep it simple. Don't let anyone make you feel like you need to overhaul your diet, go on the carnivore diet, or you need to become vegan, or you need to do keto. Like, I've never seen anyone need to overhaul their diet. What I've often seen is just that people need to find these little things that they can add into what they're already doing quite well. So that is what I would recommend. All right, I would love to know which tips you are going to be applying. Let me know in the comment section below. That's it for this week's video. Next week, we are going to be doing probably one of my favorite sessions to do, and that is the Future Self session. So in the Future Self session, I guide people through a guided visualization where they have an opportunity to meet their future self. And when they meet their future self, this future self, I keep saying future self, we'll just call them FS, gives them insight and inspiration, encouragement, comfort quite often. And then they share their experience that they had while meeting their future self in this guided visualization with me. They share all sorts of interesting little details. Sometimes we actually turn some of those details into goals, but quite often I'm using that information simply to create their personalized yoga session. I'll also be sharing with you the personalized yoga session, but that'll be in our session 4. So next week we'll be doing the guided visualization, or at least I'll do the guided visualization. I'll share with you what came up for me, what sort of goals maybe I want to pull out of it, and maybe I'll find a way to also share a guided visualization here on the channel. I have one here on the channel, so maybe I'll just link to the one that's already here. We'll see. Some things are a little different in how I do it now compared to when I recorded that visualization, but it's still a decent one. Yeah, so that might work too. All right, I cannot wait to read your comments down below. Let me know which tips you are putting to use. Know that I'm rooting for you and wishing you nothing but the best, because that's honestly what you deserve. Until I see you next week, be well and bye for now.